Hey, this is Chris Hill with President's Club for your President's Club virtual staff meeting for April 10th, 2020. This is a meeting for President's Club members for your staff to have a staff meeting to plug into. And so our call today is going to be coming from notes from John Maxwell's book, 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader. And our subject today is self-discipline. He says in his book, the first person that you lead is yourself. Before you can lead anyone else, you have to lead yourself and be in control of yourself. Plato said this, the first and best victory is to conquer self. And we've seen a lot of people, I know you have and I have, that are trying to control other people, but they can't even control themselves. And so you've got to figure out how do you self-discipline yourself so that you can be effective and then lead other people. One man said this, a man without a decision of character can never be said to belong to himself. He belongs to whatever can make captive of him. So a man without a decision of character, meaning a man that hasn't conquered himself and decided for himself who he is and what he's supposed to do, he belongs to whatever can make captive of him, whatever vice that comes along or whatever allurement comes along, it can make him captive, meaning he can't self-discipline himself. And so wanted to give you from Maxwell's book 5 steps to self-discipline, because one of the things, if you're a staff member, one of the things that will help you the most is to be self-disciplined. And I remember when I first come to work here, working for Andy, and we were talking a little bit, I told him this, I said, my plan is that you'll never have to worry about me because I work for God before I work for any man. And so God is everywhere. So I'm I have to show self-discipline because he is really the person that I'm trying to please. And so because of that, I have to display self-discipline in every area of my life. And so I want to give you some things from Maxwell's book that helped me, hope they help you as well. So 5 steps to self-discipline. Number 1, develop and follow your priorities. One of the things that is hardest for people to do is to figure out what is most important. And so if you're a staff member, you're working for an alliance agent, you have to figure out what is most important. Now, here's one of the benefits that you have. Because there's someone paying you and you're an employee of an employer, you get to ask them what is most important. What are the priorities in this role that I'm playing or this job that I have right now? What is most important? So develop and follow those priorities. Ask them. Say, hey, tell me the list. Because here's the problem. If I think something is really important and then I spend a lot of time working on it, and then when I get done with it and I present it to whoever my superior is and I say, look what I was able to accomplish, and they say that wasn't important, then that becomes a detriment not just to my job, but to me and to my self-discipline. So you have to make sure you're working on the right things at the right time. So develop and follow your priorities and split up into 2 ways. Number 1 is developing your priorities. You should have a clear list of what it is that you need to accomplish. What is it that your employer has asked for you to do that is most important? If you have a disagreement with that, you don't just go about your day and do whatever you want to do. You have an open discussion and say, hey, help me understand why this is more important than what I think is more important. Sometimes what we do is we get emotional about it and we come in and say, I think this is, that's not necessarily what you want to do. Ask the question simply like this. Help me understand. Walk through with me this. Help me figure out why this is most important, because you have to develop these priorities. I've seen a lot of people that have done really good work on the wrong things and lose their job. And then I've seen people that have done not as good work, but they were working on the things that were most important. So they didn't get as much accomplished as the other person, but they got the things accomplished that mattered most. And you need to make sure that you're working on what matters the most. The second piece to develop and follow your priorities is in the line. Follow the priorities. Sometimes the easy thing is to figure out what you're supposed to do, and the hard thing is to actually do them. And so when you start your day, we all have good intentions, and we start, I'm going to do great today. I'm going to knock out all these tasks. I'm going to be right lined up what I'm supposed to do. And then halfway through the day, we're working on all kinds of random stuff that, it might be exciting to us, but it isn't a priority. So half of the battle is simply following your priorities. And so what you have to do is keep that list out. And halfway through the day, you should look back and say, all right, am I still lined up with the priorities that I have? And if I'm not, did something change or did I change? If something changed and my employer comes along, which that happens here at the Alliance, that happens often because things happen fast, and so sometimes things do change. But if I'm the one that changed, that becomes a problem if I got out of alignment with the priorities. You have to have both, developing and following, if you want to be effective at your job. One without the other doesn't help you move up. It doesn't help you accomplish the right tasks. It simply leaves you frustrated and discontented. Number two, so number one, develop and follow your priorities. Number two is make a disciplined lifestyle your goal. Make a disciplined lifestyle your goal. Think about this. There's an employer that is choosing to pay you, or if you're a salesperson, there's an insurance company that's choosing to pay you for whatever you sell, whatever that you do. But before any of that takes place, you need to display a lifestyle of discipline. Because what's more important than you getting paid is you proving to yourself that you're willing to do what it takes to get paid. So this is speaking of your daily behavior. How well are you at staying on track and accomplishing what needs to be accomplished? Many people have really, really good intentions, but they don't have a disciplined lifestyle, so they never accomplish any goals. It's not that they don't want to accomplish goals. It's simply they don't have the discipline to accomplish the goal. So you have to make this a lifestyle. We often say, it's kind of like taking a shower. You got to do it every single day for it to be effective. And self-discipline is the same way. It's a lifestyle. It's a decision you make every single day. This also applies when there's no one else around. We always say it's really easy to be disciplined when the boss is there. It's really hard to be disciplined when he's not. But if you have self-discipline, it doesn't matter if the boss is there or not there, because you've already disciplined yourself, because you're more interested in your success than your employer is. So you have self-disciplined yourself. All right, number three, challenge your excuses. Expect more from yourself. Whenever you start to make this statement, I can't because, you need to stop yourself and say, how could I? Now, you don't need to come up with excuses. We have plenty of them. Your employer doesn't need to hear you say why you can't accomplish something. They're paying you for solutions, not problems. We don't need problem finders. We need solution finders. And so people that challenge their excuses, I can't get this done. So ask yourself, who could help me? What resources could I use to accomplish this? How could I get this to work so that my employer doesn't have to come behind me and do it? Now, this doesn't mean that you don't ask for help. Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to go to my agency manager and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And so this is, I can't figure this out. It all depends on the way you approach it. If you come and say, it's impossible, I can't do this, then what you've done is immediately put a wall up saying, you can't help me, nobody can help me, I can't do this. If you come to your employer or your agency manager or whoever is leading you and say, hey, I am struggling with this, can you help me with some ways that I can figure this out? Because a lot of times what we do is we try to figure things out on our own, and it takes us 2 to 3 days, when really, if we would just ask for help, we could get it done a lot quicker. I remember at my house, my back porch, for some reason, the stairs were, rotting away, and I don't know much about that kind of stuff. But me and my dad, neither one of us are carpenters, but we like to, do that kind of stuff, even though we're not good at it. So we decided to replace my stairs in the back. And so we worked all day long. He came up, we started on a Saturday morning, and we started like at 8 o'clock. I went to Lowe's, I think, like 4 times. And by like 5 o'clock, we had stairs, and I was proud of it. I was impressed. I was like, this thing is awesome. I was impressed with myself. The next day was Sunday, and I was at church, and I was talking to a good friend of mine who is actually a carpenter, and he's a construction worker, general contractor, all that. And I told him what we did. And I said, it took us all day, but we got it accomplished. And he started laughing. He said, it should have taken you about an hour. The job that it took me and my dad 8 hours, so 2 guys, 8 hours, 16 hours worth of work, he said he normally gets done in about an hour by himself. Because we didn't ask for help, we hindered ourselves and wasted a whole day. So it's not going to my friend and saying, hey, I can't build these stairs. it's not possible, but instead going to my friend saying, hey, could you help me with this so I could get this done in a better fashion, in a faster way, so we could get more done? So challenge your excuses. Anytime the word can't begins to come out of your mouth, you need to stop it and replace it with how can I? So your mind starts working to figure out, I can accomplish this. Challenge your excuses. All right, number 4, remove rewards until the job is done. Remove rewards until the job is done. We live in a world that wants everything immediately. We've got, fast food, all these different, even now you can get pictures made. It's almost instant how they come out. All this, everything has to be fast and immediate. You need to learn with self-discipline what delayed gratification means. The longer you push out your gratification, the longer you push out the reward, the bigger the reward normally is. And so people that celebrate over the smallest things and they have those rewards right away, typically don't accomplish big things. Doesn't mean you shouldn't celebrate. I think everybody should celebrate. But your celebration can either be a 30-second, we're excited, or sometimes it turns into a whole day of not working. You need to push out rewards, push it down the road, knowing the longer you leave it in, the bigger it's going to be. A lot of times it's like putting money in an IUL or stock market. The longer you leave it in, the bigger it becomes, the bigger the reward. And if you can do the same thing with your activities, if you can practice delayed gratification, you see things more often. Sometimes what you do is you have one good week, and then you go to your employer and say, hey, I need a raise. And they're thinking, you had one good week. They used to tell us this all the time. It's a good week backed up by a good week, backed by a good week, backed by a good week that starts to display results. And so it's not that you did good one week, it's that you have the habit of doing good and pushing back that reward, saying, I'm not going to ask for that right now. I'm going to wait till I have a track history of it where people can see what I've done, and I've done it on a regular basis. And people say that's the habit that he is to display good work, and then I'm going to ask for the raise. And so oftentimes we ask for it too early, and then I'll be honest with you, if you have one good week and you ask for a raise and you get it, you've limited yourself. Where if you wait 6 months and doing a lot of good work and you push the reward out further, you would get a bigger reward, a bigger raise, because you've shown that you are more valuable. So delay gratification. Then number 5, stay focused on the results. If you're like me, this is the hardest one. Stay focused on what matters most. Remember what it is that you want to accomplish. What is it that you're trying to do? Remember at the very beginning of the call, we talked about talking to the person that's leading you and figuring out what are your priorities. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And so staying focused on results simply means keeping that in front of you. You might need to have a list in front of you of your priorities, so you see them on a regular basis so you don't forget them. You might need to keep it in front of you. When I'm writing a message for church, one of the things that I do is I first come up with what is the big idea that I'm trying to get across, and then every sheet of paper, I write it at the top of it. Because what often happens is 2 to 3 pages in, I get off track on what I'm trying to accomplish, on what I'm supposed to be talking about. And so I have to remind myself of what are we trying to accomplish here? What is my priorities, so that I keep working on those things? So, you start your day at 8 o'clock, it's 3:30, it's 4 o'clock. Are you still focused on what it needs to be focused on, or have you gotten off track? Jackson Brown Jr. said this: talent without self-discipline is like an octopus on roller skates. There's a lot of movement, but you do not know where it is going. There's a lot of things happening, but nobody seems to be going in the right direction. So then how do we improve self-discipline, and then we'll be done? 3 ways. Number 1, sort out your priorities. Go back to the very first point. Develop that list of priorities, what has to be accomplished, and then sit down with the person that's leading you saying, what's the most important? What is number 1? What is number 2? What is number 3? See, if you have a list of, let's say, 10 things, 10 priorities, and you accomplish number 10, 9, and 8, but don't accomplish number 1, 2, and 3, that's a problem. Because, see, you accomplished the things that were least important on the list instead of things that were most important. So you have to sort out your priorities. When you sort out your priorities, then you have the opportunity to plan your schedule to accomplish those priorities. So if one of your responsibilities is to scan in applications and get the apps in onto the carriers, that might be your number one priority because that's what gets everybody paid. So what if you decided to neglect that one for the week? You didn't do that for the week, but you did everything else. You did all the other part, but you didn't do that one priority. Well, that means nobody got paid, and when nobody gets paid, guess what happens to you? You don't get paid. So neglecting the sorting of your priorities can really cost you everything in your job. So that's why you have to make it very clear. And if you don't know what it is, you have the right to sit down with your employer or your agency manager and say, what are the priorities, and help me sort them out. If you're not living off of priorities, you're constantly going to be frustrated because oftentimes what you think is important may not be important, so you've got to list those out and sort them. The second thing you do is list the reasons why they're important. See, oftentimes what we do is we just have a list of priorities and we're going down the list just checking a box, checking a box. You need to write to the side of it, why is this important? Why does this matter to the grand scheme of what we're trying to accomplish? Is this trying to help us reach our goals? Is this trying to help us get there? The best questions you can ask is, help me understand why this is important. Help me understand why we need to accomplish this. I've asked Amy that question, I think, 1,000 times. Help me understand why we need to accomplish this so that I make sure I'm aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. Because you need to be lined up with the person that's leading you, not running in a different direction. And then the third is get rid of excuses. You know there's going to be problems that show up. You know there's going to be things that you have to deal with every single week. Every week we're going to have stuff that comes up. So go ahead and plan for those things, identify those things, and deal with those things. A lot of times we wait until the problem gets to us, and then we freak out and have to deal with it. Well, it's too late then. Why not look down the road and see, hey, there's a problem. It's 3 miles down the road. I know it's coming. Let's go ahead and figure out a detour now. Or I know there's traffic down the road. So why don't we go ahead and find a different route now, because we know this is going to be a problem. So let's deal with it now instead of waiting till it gets to us. So part of being self-disciplined is acknowledging the problems, dealing with the problems, and fixing the problems before they become big problems. When you deal with something that's small, when you deal with it when it's really little, oftentimes it doesn't get real big. But a small problem that's left alone tends to get huge, and then it becomes overwhelming. So deal with it early. That is self-discipline. I'll end with this quote, one of my favorite quotes from John Maxwell. The best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The next best time is right now. The best time to become self-disciplined was 25 years ago. But the next best time is to do it right now. You're going to be judged. Dot Rock says this, you're going to be judged tomorrow by what you do today. So just be self-disciplined today. Can't fix the past, can't worry about the past, but you can change what you're going to do today and be in self-discipline today. I'll promise you this, if you learn to be self-disciplined, you'll constantly be moving up in your job, in your career, whatever you're trying to accomplish. You're constantly moving in the right direction, because when you're self-disciplined, you're choosing where you're going. When someone else has to discipline you, then it's based off of when you mess up or when you have a problem and they have to fix it for you. Self-discipline is when you're choosing your direction instead of somebody else choosing your discipline. So practice self-discipline, 5 steps: develop, follow your priorities, make a disciplined lifestyle your goal, challenge your excuses, remove rewards until the job is done, stay focused on the results, and then improve your self-discipline by sorting out your priorities, listing why they're important, and getting rid of your excuses. Thank you for jumping on.